The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Worldwide, 1-866-656-5477. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your host of Down the Garden Path, Mr. Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, Gary, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Down the Garden Path, here where each week we like to discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think that it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I am Matthew Dressing here flying solo this evening. Joanne has gone off to the Buffalo Garden Walk, as we have talked about that previously on the show. So hopefully if you, or maybe you're listening from there, but maybe you're enjoying it as well. But I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the Eastern GTA. And as I said, Joanne is normally with me, my co-host, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here in the east of the GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. And as always, we welcome your questions via social media or email. And if you'd like to email us a question this evening, it's instudio101@gmail.com. So thank you for joining us this Monday evening down the Garden Path. You can always check out past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe to be notified of new content, and please like, share, leave us a comment, and let us know what you enjoy. We're always looking for topics for new episodes. As gardeners, we're all in different zones and different areas, and we've got lots to talk about, share and learn, and so that never really ends for us. So tonight on the show, it is just going to be me, and tonight we are going to talk about Japanese garden beetles. So if you've got your questions, now's the time to write them in. We normally do, Joanne and I, a little segment about what's going on at the garden center and in our gardens. Holding true to that, Japanese garden beetles is the number one thing happening in the garden center right now. Almost every other question that I'm getting asked is about Japanese garden beetle. So today, right now, we're going to go through kind of what is the Japanese garden beetle, where it came from, and what can you do. There's a lot of people talking about it. What do they do? What don't they do? Traps, chemicals, what's the life cycle, etc. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. I guess just quickly going on in my own garden. The potatoes are coming up beautifully. My window boxes are lovely. I've got a lot of different edibles, nasturtiums, potatoes, some herbs, different flowers, things like that. And everything's going very well. We have lost a lot of the water. The heat is being turned up. The humidity is being turned up. So as Joanne and I always say, make sure that you are watering out there. You don't need to have it sitting in watering, but making sure that you're watering to the bottom of that pot. If you've dug in or just newly planted a tree, a shrub, or a perennial, you want to make sure that your water is penetrating to the bottom of that hole that you've dug. And remember that the roots are still in that pot. It's not going to, get a lot of rainwater. It's not going to just take a little hit along on the top. You needed to get right down to the bottom of that hole. So I'm watering my containers pretty much every 2 to 3 days now out in that heat. I've got that full to partial sun, and things are hot. Things are cooking. July is definitely here.
Question. Now, en route to the studio, coming up the steps to the studio door outside, you saw my tomato and pepper plants?
I did. They were looking quite nice.
Really? They're okay, you think?
Yeah.
Because I had to bring them out front because that's the only place I really get sun is right there.
Oh,
in the back, I got nothing, man.
Yeah.
So I figured, I know it's kind of weird to put my tomato plants and things in the front because what I worry about literally, I kid you not, is when people come in and out and everything and they see a nice tomato on there, they're going to pick it and I'm not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. But anyways, yeah. So you noticed them.
Yep. No,
Okay.
they were looking good.
Good.
Yeah, I don't. What, are you growing like cherries or
Some cherry,
or?
some full size and some cherry and some peppers. And those were given to me, those plants, by another gardening show who I think you know some of the folks, the Garage Gardeners radio show. I'm not sure if you know them, but
Steve and Emma.
Yeah, Emma.
Yep.
Right, Emma gave me a bunch of plants weeks ago, and she said, "Here, try these." So I'm trying them. So
knowing Emma, you've probably got some
good stuff. You think?
pretty good stuff
Good.
there. I wonder if they're usual varieties or some of the different ones that she's grown.
Well, she's grown, I think, all the varieties she gave me, but on the pot, I actually made stickers with the names of the species or whatever you call it, the variety.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about it. So we'll just see if something comes up. I'm just keeping them watered, keeping them in the sun, and we'll see, what happens.
Yeah, and that's all you really
so
need to
I
do.
thought,
Keep them
but
going.
it's kind of strange because people come up to the studio here, and instead of having a really nice type of a garden, horticulture type of a garden, they get up close to the steps and all they see is vegetable plants. And it's kind of weird though to put it in your front yard, don't you think?
I thought honestly when I saw them that maybe that you were having the backyard renovated or something happened and you were moving
not
stuff
enough
around.
sun. Take a look when you leave here. Just if he lays up there, or even doesn't matter, go in the kitchen, look out the window. You can see the garden, and a lot of things are growing, but it's partially sun or no sun kind of stuff. And we just don't have, even during the day, and it's probably because of the trees, the way that they're not trimmed to let sun in. There's not a lot of sun back there, so to grow anything that needs a lot of sun isn't going to work.
Yeah,
We've tried it.
You've got some nice shade trees.
Yeah, we have some nice shade trees.
Nice
maybe.
little oasis.
And let me ask you this regarding, if you don't mind, garden, the grass. When you get a lot of moss in your, is it because of dampness and shade?
There's usually a sign of extra moisture.
Okay.
That there's extra water tend to be in that area, whether it's just like you're on a swale or, again, like you're in a shady spot. It takes a while for it to evaporate and get used. But also that the soil can be slightly acidic as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so grass likes it sweeter. They don't really mind.
What do we put
the
down
moisture.
for that? For a sweet soil, if you want to get the pH better, what do you add?
Yeah, some dolomitic lime or just some limestone will bring it up. You can use products like your Moss Out or your Weed Be Gone.
Okay.
Will have the iron in it that will kind of distaste the area or kill the moss for you, remove the moss for you there. Yeah.
Because we do have a lot of moss, and I was thinking it's overkill with moisture and everything, right? Probably.
That's definitely encouraging it.
Yeah.
Knowing though too now that you have a shady backyard,
Yeah.
all the grass species that we grow for our lawn are full sun species. So grass where there's less than 4 hours of consecutive daylight and quality daylight, the grass tends to be thin and sparse anyway. So you may also just have that kind of tough spot where it's fairly shaded and the grass doesn't want to do it.
Okay, one more question if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
I have a lot of clover in my front yard. How do you get rid of that, or is that okay to grow? I mean, there's some areas more clover than grass.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with that?
A lot of people are actually coming into the garden center now and looking for clover specifically.
Take it out of my lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Come over to the address. But yeah, it's a mixed camp now. A lot of people, if they're lawn purists, they want it's grass.
Yeah.
And it's mowed and it's kept, etc.
Yeah.
And clover is a weed. A lot of people nowadays, grass is so intense for its maintenance and its everyday care that they're actually putting clover in to keep it green in the summertime because they go away, or they know they've got a hot, dry spot. They just can't keep it watered enough.
And that's good, right? Then clover would stay green and everything?
Right, and it's only going to grow so high, and it's going to stay green. It's going to take all that drought and that heat stress. But then the other side of it is in the spring, it's one of the first things to start blooming.
Okay.
So it's to save the bees and the pollinators. It's one of the first food sources that are out there.
If I wanted to get rid of some of that, what's the best way and what do I have to do?
So there are things like your Roundup or your Path Clears. These are treatments that are going to basically kill anything it touches. Yeah. There is by BioProtect, and I believe it's a United States company.
Okay.
They're really good. They've actually got a clover side out there just for clovers.
Okay.
And it'll kill all the different common clovers that you'll find
but
in
not
your
the
lawn,
grass?
But not the grass. Exactly. So it'll target. It's very selective. It will only target your clover, and it'll get rid of that. So
if I use Roundup though, and I got some of that on the grass, it would kill the grass.
Correct. Yes.
So I don't want to do that. So
no, and that's the whole Monsanto glyphosate product.
Yeah.
So there's just a clover specific from BioProtect. It kills the 3 or 4 main clovers. Doesn't hurt the grass.
I haven't found any 4-leaf though.
No.
That's 3, right? So I'm out of luck. Oh, God.
Lots of clover.
Anyways. All right. Well, Matt, thanks. I just want to give out the contact information again. Folks, you are listening to Down the Garden Path with Matthew Dressing, and his co-host Joanne Shaw is out of town at a garden show, we believe, in Buffalo, you said?
Yeah, she's at the Buffalo Garden Walk.
Okay, the walk. Okay, yeah. So we have Matthew's here. He does have an agenda, but if you have any question whatsoever that he can help you with, you can call us or email us. Most people prefer email, but let me give you all the information again. The email address is instudio101@gmail.com. If you want to talk to Matt live and you're in the Toronto GTA area, call us at 905-725-1907. Anywhere else in North America, it's a free call, 1-866-905-7325. There you go, Matt. I'm eating licorice. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for letting everybody know that. And yes, we are going to we were talking about lawns there for a bit, but the Japanese Garden Beetle. As we know, the Japanese Garden Beetle is one of those ones that are going to create those white grubs that everybody fights with in the fall and the spring. So they're up right now. If you're not familiar with the Japanese Garden Beetle, it is a fairly large beetle. It's got bronze backing with some nice shiny green on it's probably like if you would say the back of your neck kind of area of the beetle. And they're devastating. They like to swarm all together. They're about a half an inch big, and they've got white little tufts around their edges. And they're going to skeletonize and eat all of your leaves out there right now. And what they're going to do, you'll find them on things like your roses, your grapevines, your hydrangeas, your birches, your beeches. There are over 250 different plants that these guys are going to eat. Just like the name said, they are native to Japan. They are an eastern beetle that they've been brought over here. I believe they came through the New Jersey area. From what I had heard, that they were transported over on a shipment. They were being looked at as possibly another insect as well that could be do something. I don't know what it would do really for us in the environment or as a beneficial, but it escaped those shipments, not specifically to a university or anything like that. They're not the bad guys, but they did come over a number of years ago, and they have spread out amongst the East Coast, and they are spreading now. My garden center here is in the Durham region in the GTA, and we are quite inundated, quite randomly, by the Japanese garden beetle. I have none where I live in my area, neither do my grandparents or my grandmother, any of my other family members, but very closely there are very large pockets. The area of infestation, there's really no specific target area. They're just kind of everywhere, and they're moving in and they're settling in. So I'd be very interested, again, in Studio 101, if you're in Canada or if you're in the States, have you seen these insects? Do you have them? Do you have any issues with these insects? I'd be really interested to know if someone has an insect, has those Japanese garden beetles, but actually is finding someone eating them. Is there a predator in the adult phase that you guys have seen or no? So you can write me at instudio101@gmail.com. So the Japanese garden beetle, these things, like we were saying, they're going to start out as white grubs in your lawn. So the main defense right now, going through July, and any time, as we talked about lawns before, is keeping your lawn nice and high. Right now, the females, they're mating, they're going to be laying eggs, and keeping the lawn nice and high and green, as we know, is going to keep the lawn actively growing. Most of the grasses that we grow, especially here in the northern regions, are cooler season grasses, meaning they're looking for the 16 to 22 degrees Celsius temperature, those nice comfortable ranges that we experience in fall and spring to grow and stay active. But by keeping it 3 inches long, watered once a week every 4 to 7 days, well fed at the 4 times of year, we're going to keep that grass moving and growing. So this is our primary defense right now against our Japanese garden beetles. The female Japanese garden beetle is going to lay eggs, 1 to 6 of them, every 24 to 36 hours. So we know that they lay white grubs, so obviously she's going to lay her eggs in the lawn. You can see them in garden beds and adjacent areas. If mom knows that there are grassy spots nearby, her biological imperative is ticking, she will lay eggs nearby, hoping that her children, or at least that batch, will move out into the adjacent grass area and find their way. So by keeping it 3 inches long, mom can't use her ovipositor to touch the soil to lay the eggs in the soil to grow, which means that she has to go find somewhere else, which means that you can't really get grubs unless you've got a few weedy patches where she can kind of maneuver in and do that. While we see the Japanese garden beetles up, we're not going to apply nematodes or grub controls. I know I'm talking to our Canadian and American audience, and you guys, we both have 2 different ways that we can attack our grubs. A lot of our people here up in Canada are very jealous, thank you, of the controls that you guys have south of the border. But north of the border, we're going to apply nematodes. So again, for maybe some of our new listeners or people who aren't familiar with our nematodes, they're a parasitic worm, microscopic parasitic worm. And what we do is we mix those with water. And in the evening or the early morning hours when evaporation and wind is low, we're going to soak those into our lawn. And what those species are going to do, they're swimmers. We're going to keep that lawn area moist. They're going to swim around into our gardens as well as our lawn area, and they're going to basically kill the white grub, and they're going to multiply. So the nematodes will self-replicate as long as there's a plentiful food source. And that's our primary control of our white grubs. But we don't have them now. So I'm getting a lot of questions, well, can I do grubs or nematodes for the white grubs now? And no, right now we are off season for our white grubs. If you do find some, certain species like our common June beetle, our June bug, they will have white grubs in the lawn. So unless you're digging them and you're finding a particular, the white grub itself, you're applying nematodes, they will last for so long before they peter out with a lack of food. So unless you're digging them and unless you're finding them now, there are no reasons for you to be applying nematodes. For the white grub control, there are other nematodes that you can purchase from, especially from your independent garden centers, that can do other things, that can attack other issues in your yard. But right now, we're not applying for grubs. We are going to wait until about mid-August to do that. So Mom has laid her eggs successfully somewhere in the lawn because we've got lots of Japanese garden beetles. There's literally where there's one, there's four. And people right now in our area have thousands of them invading their lawn. So they're obviously successful. So Mom has laid these eggs. And what's going to happen is that these eggs are going to take 2 to 3 weeks to hatch. So even though they're in there, the nematodes, there's no grubs that they're going to eat yet. So we're going to wait 2 to 3 weeks. We're usually going to apply them mid-August, August 15th-ish is a date, and forward till the end of October. And that's when they're nice and young, and that's when they're going to be active and making, those irregular brown patches that spread across our lawn. You can tell that it's a grub at that time of year because the grass is literally just sitting on the top of the soil surface. It's brown, it's kind of just stacked there looking like grass, but it's literally just sitting there. And I always say it's like fresh cut hair on the barber's floor. It's just easy to pick up. It's just sitting there. So that's how you know that you've got white grubs. If you're thinking that you've got white grubs because you've seen this particular damage at this time of year, you probably don't have white grubs. You may dig and you find some, and you might find some June bugs or another species of beetles, grubs in there. They're not really doing that much damage at this time of year. We usually do it by being out on our lawn, improper feeding, being on it when it's wet, cutting it too long. We can do damage that way as well. But right now there is also another bug that does identical damage, and it's chinch bug that's out there. So it does identical damage to the white grub, but it's not the white grub. So take a look. Make sure that you dig on the edge of where the dead grass meets the green grass, the live stuff. Cut 3 sides of like a book or a hatch and peel it back to the uncut side. And you should find a number of white grubs underneath there. So that you know that you actually have white grubs, and that's what is creating the damage. So white grubs, nematodes, we know we're going to apply them. The best time to do them is in the fall. They will carry over into the spring and continue to do damage, but you're going to end your nematodes in about mid-June, and as mid-June through early July, that's when we're going to start to see the pupating of these grubs into the Japanese adult beetle. So as we said, they're a large beetle. They're fairly numerous. When you find one, they're green and brown. You can tell it's a Japanese garden beetle because along its rear section, you can see where the wings close their tufted little white areas of hair. There are other Japanese beetles that do other damage and other things, and they look very similar in coloration, but they are different. So what can we do now, at this time of year, as homeowners, as gardeners, to take care of these garden Japanese beetles? First thing, and I'm sure there's some of you already cringing, thinking he's going to say trap. And yes, I am going to say trap. Yes. So we are going to have to trap our Japanese garden beetles. That is, at this time of year, the most effective control for them. But Matthew, the trap, they bring them in from everywhere. And no, they don't. That is a myth. The pheromone lure, so what a trap is, if you haven't used a trap or you don't have Japanese beetle, maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about. The trap is basically a large, colorful Ziploc bag. It's usually chartreuse or dark green to kind of make it look like leaves or the bright yellow chartreuse or bright blues that some of the insects can see. So what it is this bag is sealed. And on top of it, there is a pheromone lure. And these pheromones are a floral scent. So it's going to signal to the beetles that we've got food over here. But also we've got a pheromone, a sexual scent, to say there's mates and there's more of us that are over here doing our thing. And so come and join us. So the idea is that the trap is going to send out this signal that is going to lure the Japanese beetles away from your plants. Pardon me as I take a sip. Thank you, Elaine, for the delicious coffee as always. But yes, so this is going to emanate a signal and tell them to come in. But everybody has this myth that the traps bring in everything from everywhere. And I think, say it like this. It's like if you go into a restaurant, it's a fancy evening, black tie, you splash a little cologne or perfume on you. If I'm within a certain vicinity of you, I'm probably going to pick up on your scent. I can smell you. But when you walk in the front door of this fancy restaurant, 20 tables to the back by the window, the couple or group of people there, they cannot smell you. So it's the same as the trap. The traps only emit that pheromone signal so far before the wind blows it away or before another smell takes it over or breaks it down and removes it. So the traps do not attract everything from everywhere. You are not getting, 4 square kilometers worth of Japanese garden beetles. Those Japanese garden beetles are actually right where you are. Where you see one, there's 3 hiding. They've got them right there. Now, will you attract other Japanese garden beetles? Yes, because most people will hang it on their fence or buy a tree. And again, that's going to cover a certain amount of area. So if you put that on the fence, say you put it in the corner of your yard, there are 3 adjacent backyards that may still have Japanese beetles there. So they will come over the fence because you've got that lure that is designed to overpower those natural colonies worth of Japanese garden beetles. They're going to enter your trap, and it's going to appear, well, I didn't have that many on my plant. There was like maybe 2 dozen, and I put up the thing, and now it's 4 inches deep, and there's like 1,000 in there. And it's because there were that many actually in your adjacent yards or in your areas. So rule number 1 with a trap, never put it on or around the plant that is being affected. If you put it in the tree, for example, you've got a birch, it's hanging in the tree, there's lots of Japanese beetles there, they're going to sit there and they're going to eat the tree. They're going to find the tree, the birch, for example, first. They love birch up here in Ontario. And they're just going to sit on top of the bag. Some of them are going to fall in. They're going to get trapped. You're going to have to dispose of them. The trap does not kill them. You do have to kill them yourself or dispose of them. We'll talk about that in a second. But they're going to sit there on the lure because the signal is that right here, there's lots of food. Come here, come have sex and eat with us, and we'll do our thing. And they're going to sit there. So you never want to put the trap in your plants. You want to draw them away from your plants. So what you want to do is hang your Japanese beetle trap, and there's many companies that make them. They are not all made equally. We've had John from Natural Insect Control on from the Niagara region. You can see naturalinsectcontrol.com, and they have a beautiful lure that I highly recommend. A nice, strong, effective lure, draws them in. 10-year UV stable plastic. It's fantastic. So shout out to NIC. But be careful of what you buy. They're not all equal. They're not all as strong. So again, breaking down that myth, you're not drawing in everybody's Japanese beetles. That your lures aren't that strong. They're not all made equal as well. So you've got the lure. You're going to take it out to your yard. You're going to hang the lure. It needs to be from the 3-foot to the 5-foot range off the ground. So you're not going to put it on the ground. You don't want to put it up 50 feet up into a tree. You are going to have it on the 3 to 5 foot mark. And it's easily accomplished by hanging it with your bird feeders. Maybe you have an extra spot on a shepherd's hook, or a lot of garden centers or places, big box stores, they might be clearing out some shepherd's hooks, or you have an old hockey stick or a stake that you can apply it to or hang it on. That will work perfectly. And it'll be 10 to 20 feet away at minimum from that plant. And that will draw them away from that weaker signal, that weaker, smaller colony that's eating your Japanese maple or your birch or your rose or anything, and it'll pull them into that one spot. So never put them with the trap or with the plants. You're going to put them out there. If you need to put them on the fence, again, go ahead, but note that you might be pulling them in from your neighbor if your neighbor is infected as well. You can put them in a lawn space. If that's the only spot you can hang or stab a shepherd's hook, you can put them in the lawn space. Again, yes, mom's going to give me white grubs, but remember, you're going to cut your lawn 3 inches high. You're going to keep it nice and well watered. We've all tuned into the past shows. We've heard our lawn talk. So our lawn is nice and thick. It's fed. It's beautiful. Mom's going to get bored. She can't touch the soil quick enough. She's going to search around. She can't touch the soil. She's leaving. Lastly, about the traps, again, that myth. I'm attracting Japanese beetles from everywhere. No, it only does so far. However, they're always moving. Mom doesn't really know where she's come from. She doesn't know that she's just left that Japanese maple 10, 15 feet away to find the lawn. She's just going to jump up and she's going to fly off, and she's going to start looking for new mates and new food and new colony to be impregnated again. Because, again, remember, they're laying eggs every 24 to 36 hours. So she's going to fly away. But the females, they can move up to 1 kilometer away to find new mates and new colonies. So there's always a little bit of air traffic with these Japanese garden beetles. So yes, there are always new ones coming. And yes, you probably did have that many in your immediate area of your garden to make sure that you're not getting everybody and everywhere. As we hit the bottom of the hour, I want to thank you again for tuning in. If you have Japanese garden beetle questions or just general lawn questions, or any question really, you can always write me here at instudio101@gmail.com. You can also reach us anytime, Joanne at down2earth.ca, as well as Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. You can also call worldwide toll free 1-866-656-5477. And I think now we'll take a break. And if we give it a second, we'll take a break. We are talking Japanese beetles if you have just tuned in, so don't forget to send in any of your questions. And when we come back from the break, what I'll talk about is some of the other treatments. Trap tends to be the one you hear about, but we'll talk about a couple other things, any other sprays, as well as things called like milky spore and what else you can do for your Japanese garden beetle issues. So again, thank you. Gary, I think, is loading the commercial, so we'll take a second. Delay. But there's lots of other things that we'll talk about as well coming in. So thank you. We're going to just take a quick break here. Thank you for tuning in to Down the Garden Path here on Reality Radio 101.
Relax by the Bay B&B offers the perfect holiday for the adventurous traveler or those who just want to escape from their busy lifestyle and rest. Book your comfortable stay in historic Margarettsville, Nova Scotia by calling 902-982-2302 and find panoramic views of the Bay of Fundy while enjoying the warm hospitality of Heber's Baked Goods and April's breathtaking watercolor paintings. Stay for a week or a weekend in your own suite, complete with private bath. Call 902-982-2302 to book your stay now. RelaxByTheBayBnB.com. Arrive as guests and leave as friends. Welcome back to Down the Garden Path with your host, Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right back to your host of Down the Garden Path, Matthew Dressing.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. Yes, you are listening to Down the Garden Path here on Reality Radio 101. Thanks for tuning in and keeping me company this evening. As you know, if you're just tuning in, Joanne, who's normally here with me, she's off and she's south of the border enjoying the beautiful Buffalo Garden Walk. A fantastic walk. Buffalo, they open like over 400 houses, I believe they were saying. And they've got all these beautiful gardens that you can tour, and artists and fantastic things, events and people to meet and gardens to see. So definitely give that a quick Google. Always write me a question in studio101@gmail.com. We're talking Japanese garden beetles this evening. And if you have any other general gardening questions, you can write me one of those as well. Don't forget, you can also call anywhere in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Again, 1-866-905-7325. So we left off before the break. We were talking about Japanese garden beetles and trapping them, controlling them. What can we do? We talked about making sure that your lawn is nice and cut. That 3 inches is going to help prevent mum from laying white grubs in your lawn, preventing them from reproducing and giving you grubs, which are going to give us later troubles in the fall as well as the spring. But also now we're controlling them by physically trapping them and removing them. So we talked about how to put up a trap, that they're not all made equal. You want to have it 3 to 5 feet above the ground and 10 to 20 feet away from your plant to draw them in and away from those beautiful plants that we're growing in and trying to enjoy without having them eat them. So what do we do now? We've got a Japanese garden beetle bag filled with Japanese garden beetles. So what do we do to get rid of them? Basically, the favored method that everyone has is we are basically dumping them into soapy water. So opening the bag, some of them are just Ziplocs across the bottom, and you literally just rip open the bottom and it all falls out. So dumping them into soapy water. Also, you could take the bag off, and I like this method, is opening it underneath in a bigger pail of soapy water and having them somewhat drown and be stuck in the soapy water. And basically the soapy water is going to prevent them from opening their shells and expanding their wings and taking off on you instead of just opening the trap and having them fly away. So the soapy water is going to contain them, kind of slow them down, and let you pour them into a grocery bag. Or I have one guest who comes in, it's a delight of hers every year. She gums them up with soap and water, and she lives on a very busy street, and she pours them out into the street and watches the cars run over them, and that's her enjoyment for the Japanese garden beetle season. If you crush them, don't crush them. Basically what you're going to do is you crush them all. You can release the scent that they're releasing to draw in other Japanese garden beetles, and those glands are going to release that signal and start to draw them in. Alexis, thank you. Alexis writes in, great show, Matt. Great information. Thank you, Alexis. Thanks for tuning in this evening, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. So we've disposed of them. Different traps will have different methods. Sometimes the trap will have a second bag. You can just take it off, throw out that bag all contained in the garbage, put on a new bag. But generally, soaping them up, gumming them up, putting them in another bag, and just throwing them out in the garbage. They'll suffocate, they'll die in the garbage. Frequently empty your trap if you're using your trap, because it does smell. They smell really, really bad. I have never smelt something as horrible as like a room full of rotting dead things, but these bags really smell. So do it every 2 to 4 days. Just make sure that you empty them out and get rid of them. So maybe you don't like the trap. Maybe you've got too many. Maybe they've done so much damage that you're really angry, like a lot of people are, and you just want to kill them all en masse. So how do you do it? There really isn't a spray designed for killing Japanese garden beetles. However, most of your insecticides that will kill beetles will probably kill your Japanese garden beetles. In Canada, it's going to be things like your Malthion or your Endol, something with a pyrethrin in it or the Malthion in it. I have personally, when we were figuring them out, we had to do a little bit of experimenting. We had them in our garden center and we were able to apply them, these different treatments, to see what didn't work, because there's a lot of myths out there, what does and doesn't work. And lots of people have mixed things. One of our girls at our garden center, she mixes hydrogen peroxide, any strength, just kind of a 9-to-1 solution, and she sprays them on there, and it tends to stun them and dry them out fairly quickly and kill them. And then she just sweeps them up and disposes them. The pyrethrins, the Endol, that's the one that I like to use. It is a restricted pesticide here in Canada. I do believe it says Beetles on the label, but the pyrethrins in it will actually kill the beetle fairly quickly. I've applied them in my own yard to see if it would work, and it kills them fairly quickly. And by my own yard, not my own yard, because I've already prefaced that I don't have them, but in a family member's yard, lives far away, I've been able to use that, and they have died fairly quickly. We've also seen it at the garden center. So what a lot of people will do is take something like your malathion, your endol, your hydrogen peroxide solution, and they'll use it as kind of a two-pronged attack. We'll use the trap to pull them all away from your plants so that they basically get trapped. We're limiting the amount that they can reproduce. And then people will follow up with a soapy spray or hydrogen peroxide spray or another chemical spray that they have. Again, in the States, you probably have many more things that will very easily destroy these beetles en masse if it's really that much of a problem. I haven't really heard much from the mid or the western United States as whether or not you guys have got them. Would love to hear from you in studio101@gmail.com if you guys have them that far west as well. But yeah, so we'll trap them, and then we'll just tidy up with the spray to kill the last little pockets of 6 or 8 or a dozen that kind of repeat offend on some of our plants as well. A lot of people, the soap and water. What the soap and water, will it kill it? Will it not kill it? What insects? It's kind of one of those mixed kind of housewives stories. A lot of people swear by it. A lot of people hate it. But the idea is that the fatty acids in the dish soap, the detergent, will gum them up and break down their shell. And it does work fairly well with certain soft-bodied insects. If you've noticed, especially here in Canada, we have all the ingredients have to be on things and the calorie counts, et cetera, et cetera. If you go and look at your dish soap, there is no ingredient information on your dish soap. So they get away with it. So those things that break down those greases, much like the fatty acids in your insecticidal soaps, the idea is that they will gum them up or break them down and destroy them. They will slow your Japanese garden beetles, but they will not, at least the soaps that we use here in Canada, they will not kill them. They will slow them. It's great for stunning them and hand picking them and removing them that way. However, it will not kill them. I find that in Canada, with the chemicals that we do have or things that you can use, try not to apply the ones that we have. You have to wait so many days before you can reapply the treatment to the plants. So when you do spray something, just target the Japanese garden beetles themselves. You'll apply it to that part of the plant. That part of the plant will take the dose of the treatment that you've applied, and you can spray the other parts of the plant that you have not already sprayed later in the week or in the coming days, as the Japanese beetles may reinfest or come back to it. I always people are like, what, why? Because the things that we have here in Canada, we can't apply and repel and poison and do all that systemic stuff that we used to be able to do, that you probably can still do south of the border in the States. So just applying the areas that are affected, you're using less chemicals. It's the safer way to do it. And you can repeat apply if you need to. Most of the treatments, if you look, you can only apply them after so many days. Usually the window is a minimum of 10 to 14 days afterwards. So I kind of think it's almost like taking a Tylenol or an Advil. We've got a wicked headache or a migraine. You can take 1 to 2 every 4 to 6 hours. So some labels will say you can't take the whole bottle now. Just use it as you can. So you can't reapply these treatments day after day after day after day, because the plants will start. You'll damage your plants basically. So we're trapping them, we're spraying for them, and we can physically crush or remove them or bag them or however you want to get away from them or remove them from your plants. We're going to keep the lawn nice and thick and high. We're going to apply nematodes if you need to in the fall and the spring. Nematodes will last quite a long time in the soil. Up here, they're not as native. If we get a very quick freak frost or they run out of food, you kind of see that they dissipate and they vanish, and your nematodes aren't always there. So those are your main things for your Japanese garden beetles. Really, the key is keeping your lawn nice and thick and healthy. You're removing the places in which they are laying eggs and which they're breeding, so they cannot reinfest. Now, if you have a large grassy area like a golf course or a wild open naturalized space, there's nothing really you're going to be able to go into that area and do. Your municipality, city, county, they probably won't let you do it either, and you would just economically, you would never be able to do it anyways. So in those areas, if you're adjacent to those areas, you may end up having a tougher battle than others. We used to have a space like that adjacent to our garden center, and we had 7 traps from the beginning of July to the end of September. And we were emptying them almost every day to every day and a half. And they were brutal. They can't escape these traps unless they fill up. And we found that would happen fairly quickly with some of them. They would fill up and they would just fly away. They would just hang out and they would fly away. So traps, some sprays, your cultural controls, keeping your lawns nice and thick and fed and healthy. Those are going to be the main ways of keeping your Japanese garden beetles under control. If you've got them, my sympathies to you. I hope you are winning your battle. If you don't have them, you're one of the lucky ones. Like me, I see them every day. I don't have them. I'm lucky that way. I do have a small balcony garden more than a large ground terrestrial kind of garden, so I don't have lots of them, or I haven't even seen any at my place. But I see the devastation that happens as people bring in samples and pictures every day to the garden center. So my heart goes out to you. I hope you're winning. I hope if you do have them that this information was of some use to you, and maybe there were some things that you can add to your arsenal, or maybe you're doing something incorrectly, and we can get things better for you that way. So that's pretty much Japanese garden beetles as we reach, wow, like Joanne says every day, you know what? The time really does fly. So if you have any other questions, maybe you have some follow-up questions or some lawn questions. If you have questions about anything that we have said, don't forget, you can always write us here at the studio at instudio101@gmail.com. You can also reach Joanne and I personally through our website. You can find Joanne at www.down2earth.ca. You can write her at Joanne at down2 again, earth.ca, and you can follow her on all of her social media links. You can also reach me personally, Matthew, at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. And my website, naturalaffinitydesigns.ca, as well as all my links to my social media are there as well. Don't forget, we release our live shows every week as a podcast as well, so you can always tune in to your favorite podcast app provider online. You can Google down the Garden Path podcast, and you can find this episode as well as lots of other past episodes filled with lots of other information on different subjects and guests, etc., etc. Next week, Joanne will be back here with me. It's the end of the month. I can't believe that July is already over. The summer has just flown by. I feel like I have accomplished no summer relaxation or anything, save my trip to Chicago the other week, which was fantastic. If you're in the Chicago area or you're traveling there, definitely check out the Botanic Gardens. They're absolutely stunning. And I encourage you to support all of your local botanic gardens and other foundations and clubs as well. So definitely check that out. Next week, again, the end of July, we are going to talk about August in the garden. So as every month, and you can always check out our past months as well, we're going to talk everything that we need to do to keep our gardens looking fresh and happy and floriferous, if that's a word, looking beautiful for August, as it is another very, very hot month. What are we going to do to keep everything going, and the tasks, tips, and tricks, as always, for the August garden. Oh, Ralph writes in at the end of the show. Thanks, Matt, for a great show. I learned a lot. Thank you very much, Ralph, for writing in. Glad you learned a lot. Glad it was very helpful. Thank you, Alexis. Thanks again for writing in as well, Ralph and Alexis. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and thanks again for joining me here on Down the Garden Path on Reality Radio 101. Don't forget to tune in next week as we're talking August in the garden. And you can always reach us here at instudio101.com.
At gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
What time you got in there?
I got 10-2.
Oh, are you ending your show early? No.
Oh,
Or
I was going to end now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought Kickstand's up. If you guys haven't heard it, tune into that wonderful show
Kickstand's
that's
up.
next.
Okay.
They're always here, and we run them to the line, so...
Okay, that's great. Absolutely. Well, thanks again. and Joanne will be back next week, folks.
She will.
And we look forward to more. If you have any gardening questions whatsoever, and by the way, I just want to reiterate that even though you guys have a set topic, you do take other questions for other situations. That's not an issue whatsoever.
Always. I thought we were going to talk a lot more about lawns.
Today, you mean?
Yes. Just because the Japanese garden beetles are so tied in with the white grubs to everybody's lawn. And
grubs are a problem.
And grubs are a problem.
That's right. So
they were all
right,
busy
Matt?
taking notes because they've got a war on their hands, I'm sure.
Well, that's true.
So
that's true. Well, thanks again. Great job. And folks, you are listening to Down the Garden Path with, who are you?
Matthew Dressing.
And Joanne Shaw will be back next week right here on Reality Radio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing right here on Reality Radio 101.